Hello everyone, welcome to Mastermind. So this will be third part of reading comprehension. In this, we'll be taking a reading comprehension related to history. So in the last two parts, we have discussed a reading comprehension related to science. So the topic was related to stress. So in this part, we'll do it related to history. So this will be a little more difficult than the previous two. So let us look at the questions first so that we understand the keywords beforehand itself. So the first one is the word edifices in the passage implies. So they are asking what does edifices in the passage it will mean. So whenever there will be edifices, let us look at it in a little more detail. We'll try to understand it then and there only. Next one is each of the following is mentioned as a feature of the city of Teotihuacan between AD 150 and 700 except. So in this there will be 2-3 features which will be part of this particular age, that is 150 AD to 700 AD, but one will not be part of it. So if we're looking at the options now, regularly arranged streets, large number of manufacturing workshops, apartment complexes, several administrative centers. So we are not getting clarity on what might be the answer, but while we are reading the comprehension, we'll understand. While we'll be reading the passage, we'll understand what it will be related to. What can be inferred? Next question is what can be inferred about Cuicuilco? So maybe my pronunciation is a little wrong. So just I'm telling it as Cuicuilco, port prior to 200 BC. Prior to 200 BC, what is it? What we can infer from uh, this particular place or whatever it is? We'll read along with the passage only. Next one is the word predominant in the passage it implies. So the implication of predominant also we have to concentrate on while we are reading the passage. Last one is the word ingenuity in the passage implies. So if you can see, there are three questions. There are three questions which is mentioning about the implication of a few words. So we have to understand the passage from these particular words as well. Okay, so let us start reading the passage. This is a little bigger passage. So we'll start reading, but we know what we have to concentrate on. What we have to concentrate on as well. So let us start reading the passage. The city of Teotihuacan, which lay about 50 kilometers northeast of the modern day Mexico City. So you don't have to do it, but still I'll just write it as North America, and let's say this is Mexico, and let's say this is South America. So it is lying to the 50 kilometers to the northeast of the modern day Mexico City. So this began its growth by 200 and 100 BC. Okay, so by 200 and 100 BC, in that time its growth began. At its height between 150 and 700, which is AD 150 and 700, it probably had a population of more than 1,25,000 people and covered at least 20 square kilometers. So what they are telling, they are first of all mentioning about the location of this city of Teotihuacan. Okay, they are telling that it is northeast of Mexico, and its growth itself began by 200 and 100 BC, but it reached its peak level of growth between 150 and 700 AD. After this, okay, so from 100 it came to 0, and then 1 to 150, and in between 150 to 700 it was at its highest growth level. Okay, at its highest, at its height between 150 and 700, it probably had a population of more than 1,25,000 people and covered at least 20 square kilometers. It had over 200 apartment complexes, a great market, large number of industrial workshops, administrative centers, a number of massive religious edifices. Okay, massive religious edifices, and a regular grid pattern of streets and buildings. So from here itself, we'll be getting the first answer for us. Okay, from here itself, we'll be getting the first answer for us. So let us look at the edifices over here. Okay, edifices. So what is the word edifice telling over here? It is telling about buildings or palaces or ponds or beliefs. So here they are giving it as a quantity, correct? A number of massive, big religious edifices. Okay, it can either be palaces or buildings only, because it can't be ponds, beliefs, correct? A large number of massive religious edifices. See, at that point of a time, they are speaking about apartment complexes and market, large number of industrial workshops, administrative centers. So this has to be buildings. So because if you see the meaning of this word also, edifices itself means large buildings. So here the answer is A, which is buildings for us. Okay. Next, it is telling a regular grid pattern of streets and buildings. Next question also gets solved over here only. Each of the following is mentioned as a feature of the city of Teotihuacan between 150 and 700, except so regularly arranged streets. So a regular grid pattern of streets and buildings. Okay, this has to be there. Large number of manufacturing workshops. Okay, large number of manufacturing workshops. But here they have given it as large number of industrial workshops. So this we can consider it as manufacturing also, but it is not that clear. But we can say that there is properly arranged streets, because if we are looking at that particular age, then if there is a grid pattern streets, then it is a good organization of streets. So that is good arrangement of streets. Next, they are mentioning about apartment complexes. So have they mentioned about apartment complexes? They have directly mentioned about apartment complexes over here. Next, several administrative centers. They have also mentioned an administrative center over here. Okay, so they have mentioned as an administrative center, but here they have given it as several administrative centers. But here they are giving it as one administrative center. So it can be B or D over here. It can be B or D over here. But what we can do is, in case of administration, so they are telling it as nearly 20 square kilometers of the area. So the answer needs to be several administrative centers. So the answer needs to be several administrative centers, because here they have clearly mentioned as an administrative center. So you can see that B and D are closely related. B and D are closely related, but we can go with D, because here they are mentioning about workshops again. Here also they are mentioning about workshops, but here they are mentioning it as industrial. That means it should be related to something related to manufacturing itself. But administrative centers, the number is different over here. So we can say that here D is the answer. Here that D is the answer. But when they had given this thing, some students had also marked B as answer, but it is closely between B and D. But we can say that D is the answer over here. So by reading the first paragraph, we have got to know that the first two questions can be answered from here. Okay, so, the first two questions can be done from here, but let's take it as D for now. But let us look at next paragraph. Clearly, much planning and central control were involved in the expansion and ordering of this great metropolis. Okay, there was lot of expansion also, and they kept it in proper order also. That is, they properly, the systematically they arranged the order there. Moreover, the city had economic and perhaps religious contacts with most part of Mesoamerica, that is modern Central America and Mexico region also. With them, what did it have? It had religious contacts. The main factor for the development were its geographic location. So the development, they are relating it with geographic location, which is on a natural trade route to the south and east of Valley of Mexico. The obsidian resource in the Teotihuacan Valley itself, and the valley's potential for extensive irrigation. Extensive irrigation. Okay. Next one. The exact role of other factors is much more difficult to pinpoint. Other factors, it is difficult to pinpoint. For example, the religious significance as a shrine, the historical situation, in and around the Valley of Mexico towards the end of first millennium BC. The ingenuity and foresightedness of Teotihuacans, elite and finally the impact of natural disasters such as volcanic eruptions of the late first millennium BC. This last factor, which is volcanic eruption, is at least circumstantially implicated in Teotihuacan's rise. But here we can observe a key word for us, which is they are mentioning about ingenuity. Ingenuity. Okay. But while mentioning about ingenuity, they are telling it as to be factor which is difficult to pinpoint. Factor which is difficult to pinpoint. But ingenuity, they are mentioning about Teotihuacan's elite. Okay. The rich people or the rich class in the Teotihuacan, whoever were the richer people there, about them it is mentioning. They are mentioning about their foresightedness and ingenuity. So here, if we are looking at ingenuity and foresightedness related to Teotihuacan's elite, then the word ingenuity itself means genius or clever. Okay, so here the answer will be C, cleverness. Okay, we can't mention it to be the ambition or sincerity or faith. Okay, it is cleverness. It is cleverness. So we can inherit that thing while reading this particular comprehension, while reading this particular passage. Okay, so the impact of natural disasters also they are mentioning as least circumstantially implicated in the Teotihuacan's rise. Next, prior to 200 BC, see, this also we have seen. Prior to 200 BC, a number of relatively small centers which coexisted in and near the Valley of Mexico. See here, they are talking about the Valley of Mexico. Here they are mentioning about 200 BC. See, we have started to read after 200 BC because they are mentioning it as 200 to 100 BC. Correct? That is 200 to 100 is a growth only. Then after 100 it will be 99, 98, 97 like that. Correct? Because they are mentioning it as BC, that is before Christ. So prior to 200 BC, there were relatively small centers which existed around the Valley of Mexico. Around this time, the largest of these centers was Cuicuilco. Okay, Cuicuilco before 200 BC was largest of these centers. So in other words, we can tell that before 200 BC there were small territories. Okay, small centers which existed. In those small ones, the largest one was Cuicuilco. Okay, this was seriously affected by the volcanic eruption, with much of its agricultural land covered by lava. And that is, they are telling that this was largest center, but due to volcano, this was affected. That is, the agricultural land itself was covered with the lava, and hence this was affected. Next, with Cuicuilco eliminated as a potential rival, any one of a number of relatively modest towns might have emerged as a leading economic and political power in central Mexico. Leading economic and political power in central Mexico. The archaeological evidence clearly indicates, though, that Teotihuacan was a center that did rise as a predominant force in the area by 1st century. So here they are completely mentioning about the time of how Teotihuacan came about to be a city which grew rapidly, which grew very well. For that, they are telling that before 200 BC, this area of the Valley of Mexico, around this time, there were different places. There were small units, small centers which existed in this particular area, and in those, the largest of these small centers was Cuicuilco. But this Cuicuilco was affected by volcano, and because of this volcano, the agricultural land itself was covered by the lava, and hence when this Cuicuilco was eliminated because of the volcano, the other one which emerged was Teotihuacan. Now, at last, there will be two questions for us to answer. First one is related to the word predominant. The word predominant. So, in what context have they spoken about predominant? They said that the archaeological evidence, when it comes as archaeology, you must understand that it is something which they have obtained by lot of reading or excavation, etc. Correct? So archaeological evidence clearly indicates that this Teotihuacan was the center which arised as a predominant force. That means earliest force over here. Predominant force, that is earliest force. Next one, they are speaking about what can be inferred about Cuicuilco before 200 BC. It was a fairly small city until that date. So that means that it became a bigger city after that. Correct? Until that date it was small city. No, it was not small city. They said that there were small centers, and in that small centers the largest was Cuicuilco. So the first option is wrong. It was located outside the Valley of Mexico. They are telling coexisted in and near the Valley of Mexico. Okay, in and near. Okay, that cannot be outside over here. It emerged rapidly as an economic and political center. So they have not mentioned it as economic and political center as such over here. So as a potential rival, any one of a number of relatively modest town might have emerged as leading economic and political power in central Mexico. Okay, it emerged. So after elimination, they are mentioning about the emergence. Last option they are mentioning it as its economy relied heavily on agriculture. Its economy relied heavily on agriculture. This we can infer. See, even C can be inferred, that is, it emerged rapidly as an economical and political center. So it emerged as economical and political center only when its reliance was on agriculture, because they have mentioned it over here. It was affected after volcano eruption, with much of its agricultural land was covered by lava, and because of this only it was economically heavy. That is, it was relying a lot on this it was relying a lot on agriculture. That can be inferred from this, but it emerged as economical and political center also is correct, because of this only it was, when it was eliminated, there was other place which emerged as a economical and political power. But we can also say that it relied on agriculture also completely. So here the answer can be C and D also, but in the key answers they had mentioned the answer as C over here, but even D can be answers. A lot of student had written D also at that particular point of a time, but here we can say that C is the answer, because of agriculture it had emerged as economical and political power, and after that agriculture was demolished because of the volcano, that reliance itself had come down. Because of that only other city emerged as the economical and political power. So they had mentioned the answer as C in the key answers. So I hope you have understood about this. This was relatively a little difficult passage for us, because there were lot of close options. At that point of a time we have to see which can be the better one or which can be the closest one. So depending upon the key answers, we have mentioned these particular things as the answer. So thank you. I'll see you soon in the next part.